And now Cecil County and the world. We've heard from the advocates, the students, Cecil Solidarity, and now we're going to hear a point of view regarding the school funding issue from one of Cecil County's public schools' finest. My good friend, a 15-year teacher in Cecil County in teaching, 15 years teaching, right?
15 years teaching,
Malone,
yeah.
Welcome to Cecil TV.
Thank you, sir.
9 years in Cecil County school system, right?
That is correct. 9 years.
And there's more.
Yeah.
I have a short list.
Oh, goodness.
He's an Elvis impersonator.
That's true.
He is an author of books, many books. He's a barbershop singer in a barbershop quartet, formerly in another life. He's a musician. He's a gourmet chef. He's one of those, what do you call it, renovation man?
Renaissance man.
He's an English teacher. Got that?
Got
Chris,
it.
you teach English at Perryville?
I do, yes, sir.
And looking at this proposed budget cuts and this budget turmoil, I know your students are talking about it probably, how are you affected by it, and what is your perspective?
Well, if you don't mind, I teach English 12 CCR at Perryville High School. I've got about 4 sections of it. And right now, much to the chagrin of my students, we're working on a problem solution essay. And when we discuss these kinds of things, I've been telling them, like I'll tell you, we have 4 responsibilities when we talk about something like this. The first is to define the problem, explain why it's a problem. The second is to explain to your audience why they should care. The third is to talk about potential solutions. And the fourth is to conclude with what are actionable steps that you can take. And for the sake of my students, because when you're teaching seniors, the number one question you get is, when will we ever use this in real life?
Right.
And so I'd like to take this opportunity to show my students that this is a real life application of the process that we're going over in class today. So to my students and the rest of Cecil County, if you would indulge me, I'd like to discuss in very plain terms what the problem is, because you're hearing from a lot of different sides. And when we talk about this, everybody's going to ask, well, why is it a problem now? And the truth is, it's been a problem for a while. It's just coming to a head at this situation. And that's mainly probably one of the most significant things that can't be understated is the expiration of the ESSER and LEADS grants. That's important to note. That was a lot of money that was being offered through COVID relief funds. That money no longer exists. Because we had those ESSER and LEADS grants, we could get away with funding at MOE, which is maintenance of effort levels. Now, there's a lot being said about maintenance of effort levels right now, and this is probably where there's a lot of confusion, potential misinformation, so that we understand what maintenance of effort is. This is the best way that I can.
I don't know.
Best way I can explain it, Bob. It's a state law that says it's criminal to fund less than this. Okay? So you are obligated to spend maintenance of effort levels. You can't go lower than that. It's like minimum wage. It would be criminal if you paid less than this wage. That's what it is for our public schools. And that's a very good law, by the way. That is a good thing to have. MOE is very important. It prevents any politician from absolutely gutting public schools in the interest of pushing whatever kind of agenda that they might have with public schools. It's a safeguard. You can't fund less than this. But it's important to note, Bob, MOE is a floor. It's not a ceiling. It's a floor.
Is it based on like population of students in the county or some formula?
There are a lot of factors that can go into it, population being one of them. But when we talk about funding at maintenance of effort or MOE levels, the best way that I can describe it is this, okay? Imagine having a car. And you know, we've played music for years together. We've gotten to do some of those awesome car shows in Perryville.
Right.
We've seen a lot of beautiful cars. You know, a lot of classic cars restored, run nice, sound great, and you just look at some of these classic vehicles and you can say they've put a lot of money into that ride, okay?
For sure.
Now I want you to think about the jalopy that has a crack in the windshield. The check engine light is on. There's a donut on the back left tire, and every time you hit the brakes, you can hear a squeaking noise.
You park behind me, right?
Now, it still runs because you're putting gas in the tank and you're putting fresh oil in the engine every 5,000 to 6,000 miles, right? That's maintenance of effort.
Right.
The car's still going. You're still putting gas in the tank. You're still putting oil in the engine. But anybody that owns a car knows you can't do that for several years. Your car is going to continue to get worse. We have a county executive right now that for 3 years running has only funded us at MOE. She's putting gas in the tank. It's true, there's oil in the engine. But there are other things happening to this vehicle that need to be addressed. And we cannot go a 4th year at MOE and pat ourselves on the back. And that is to say nothing of the state funding, changes or anything like that. If we just talk about the here and now, even at funding of maintenance of efforts levels, we're still feeling the pinch. Even when we had those grants, we've still been eliminating positions. We've still been reducing the size of our workforce. And we're now at the point where we have to ask this question, and I'm an English teacher, forgive me for being poetic or making the illusion, but to fund or not to fund, that is the question. And so at this point, I've described the nature of the problem. So as we start to get into solutions, it's important to talk about the solutions that are on the table are either figure out how to do what you can with less money, or we get more money. Those are really the only solutions that we have on the table. So when we talk about cuts, I need everybody to understand right now, it's real. This is not bluster. It's not fake. I need everybody to understand we've already told our media specialists that they will not have a position next year. We will not have librarians in high schools and in middle schools next year. They've already been told this. It's happening. This is not a scare tactic. It's important that everyone knows this is real. Jen Leadhams, fantastic librarian at Perryville High School. The job that she does, making sure that all of our students have the proper technology. I mean, our kids are blessed with an internet connection and Chromebooks. And when they forget their Chromebooks at home or accidentally leave them in a buddy's car or something along those lines, they come to the library and they get those Chromebooks. They get a loaner, they get a spare. When we have concerned citizens complain about the type of textbooks or the type of literature that we offer, it's Miss Leadhams that is looking over those books, investigating those claims. And if a book needs to be pulled, she's the one pulling it.
Right.
How do we take care of that if we don't have a librarian? Consider one of the greatest librarians in Cecil County right now working, Miss Kimberly Dyer. Bar none, best librarian I have ever worked with. And it's important to know, Rising Sun High School will lose a fundamental piece of the puzzle when Kimberly Dyer is no longer their media center specialist. She is responsible for putting on open mics every single year. I know because she has asked me to MC them. And I've gone there and I've watched our kids play their music, their original songs, their performances. They have a spot to do that because of a librarian like Kimberly Dyer. They have a place to go. The library, she was working on putting in coffee bars so that kids could come in, grab a cup, grab a book. She had a podcasting station so that kids could learn how to use these things.
So this is real life stuff that's going to evaporate.
It's not going to evaporate, Bob. It is evaporating.
It is evaporating.
That's I can't stress that enough. That's what's important for everybody to note, that it's gone. Our librarians have already been told they won't have a job. They'll have to find some other position within the county. We won't have librarians in high schools and the middle schools.
High schools either.
It's happening. We're already preparing for that. That's not a scare tactic. It's 100% real. When we talk about the number of teachers that are going to be cut, like it or not, public education is the social safety net of our county. When kids don't have a bite to eat at home, they can come to our schools and get a meal. When they don't have an adult in their life that's making good decisions, they can come to us and see adults that have built their lives on good decisions. You give me a class of 25, I'll be able to keep my eye on all 25. And I'll know who's doing right and who's going a bit wayward. And I can intervene. Class of 25, that's possible, Bob.
Yeah.
You give me a class of 40, it becomes less possible. The eye can only cover so much ground. In a larger crowd, it is easier to disappear. Everyone knows that. And we will have students fall through the cracks because we lack the ability, we lack the oversight, because we lack the faculty to do these things.
So as you talk, Chris, to your students and have them define this problem in real life and understand why we should care, you've illustrated that very well. Talk about available solutions and possible next steps. Your kids, your students will probably come up with some really good ideas.
Well, right now, again, we're at a fork in the road, which is if we only get maintenance of effort, the numbers, the really big scary numbers that everyone has heard, that is assuming we only get maintenance of effort for a fourth year in a row. If we get some funding above MOE, it won't be as drastic, but there will still be cuts. So that's what it comes down to. There are only two solutions on the table: fund or cut. And if we get MOE, it's going to be a whole lot of cutting. The more funding we put on top of MOE, the fewer cuts we're going to have. That's something that's worth thinking about. But, and this is important to all of the citizens of Cecil. And when I say this, I know it's very easy to look at me and think, this is just a teacher talking. I was born in an Elkton hospital. I grew up on a farm in Conowingo. I own a house in Perryville. I teach also, not just at Perryville, I work over at Cecil College. My life is in this county. You and I have played some great gigs all over. Rising Sun, Northeast, our band, we've done some stuff, brother.
Yes.
And so when I say this, ignore the fact that I'm a teacher for a second and consider me a neighbor. And what I really want everybody to consider is, we talk short term, but we also need to talk long term. And what is the long-term ramification of not properly funding our schools? And to that, I want to share this stat. According to the National Bureau of Economic Research, property value increases $20 for every dollar spent on school funding. $20 for every dollar spent on school funding. Better schools put money in your pocket. Now, I understand that a lot of people, when they talk about County Executive Hornberger, want to give tax cuts, and the party line is, we want to make sure that you keep your hard-earned money. For all of the money that you might be getting in the short term, if you want to think long term, think about your property values. Because if we don't have an about face on how we're looking at public education, if we don't turn it around, you're going to lose a lot more value in your homes than you're going to get on any rebate or tax cut. And that's something that you have to think about that. It's not any more complicated than that. So in terms of solutions, next steps moving forward, the best next step that you can take, if you're watching this, share it. Show this to your neighbors, show this to your friends. Get involved. Send emails, make phone calls. And to that end, District Executive Hornberger works for us. She is beholden to the voice of the people. You can reach her at 410-996-8324. That is her office number. Again, that number is 410-996-8324. You don't have to call and make demands. You can call and ask questions. You can call and have your voice be heard. If you're upset at the idea of losing JV sports, of losing the arts, of just the lack of equity. We have students that take AP classes, suddenly it becomes a numbers game. You have to be wealthy enough to take AP classes. Right. What happens to our students that don't have the money, that don't have the funding to take 3 or 4 AP classes? We're shortchanging them, Bob. There's no other way to say it.
Yes, and the students are our future.
Absolutely, 100%. So if there's anything that we can do right now, our next course of action needs to be to get involved and make our voices heard. And that's the best thing that we can do moving forward, sir.
Point well taken.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.